Perfect. All right. So part of this program, of course, is college preparation. So we make sure all this is good to go. I see y'all putting yes in the chat box. And that's kind of what we do want to kick off for this week and talk a little bit about preparing for college, some things to think about, and start breaking down some of the barriers at some of the more basic levels as we continue to take a deep dive. So one thing someone asked a little bit earlier was thinking about our different sessions and kind of should they join all the ones. And we say yes to join all the sessions because all of these are going to interlock a little bit within each other. If you're able to take a chance and look at our agenda, you'll see today is planning for college. Tomorrow is going to be a little bit more about writing a college essay, then student life, and even a mock at review. So hopefully all y'all have checked on that. But you're going to see how they're going to kind of go and build upon each other for each one. Really quickly, we do want to start with a little bit of journal questions. So within your packet you received to us, our welcome packet, you would have got a red NC State journal. It looks a little bit like this. Feel free to use this journal to take some notes. We're going to be asking you all and to answer some of these questions we'll be asking you as well. For these journal questions, I'm going to cover in just 1 second. I will ask that you, if you don't mind, if you want to share some information, put it in the chat box as well. You don't have to share the big blurb, just a little small snippet if you want to. Think about it in a sense, I guess, of like a TikTok, real quick and simple. Feel free to put it in the chat box if you want to forward. So our first question I want to ask for you all is, what do you think when you hear the word college? There's no right or wrong answer in general, but when you think about the word college, what do you hear from it? So I'm seeing opportunity, future, education, money. I like a thought process. Stress, future, a lot of money, freedom, job, internships, mature, degree, education, student debt, rigor, money, freedom, success, 40-year decision. Oh my Lord. Money, future, freedom, schoolwork. 40 years. Holy moly. New chapter, a place further, making money, period. I feel the period. Someone put it dead with a couple T's. A 4-year commitment. That sounds better than 40. School 2.0, stepping stone, growing up, scholarship, selling my soul to make money. Oh, come on, man. That's what we're here to change that. We're here to change that. Even more studying, career. Yes, 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 yes. All these answers really are potential regret. We're gonna try, that's what we're here for. We're gonna stop this. We're gonna stop this regret. Someone said party. Yes. Please don't make partying the first priority when it comes to going to college. Let's be real, it happens everywhere. But don't make it to make it the first priority. I'm still just selling myself to make money. Got me. All right. So these are some things you hear about when you hear the word college. With everything that you all put down, none of them is better than the other, or one is more right or more wrong, is wrong than the other. They ought to use chicken flavor is the best. That's all I'm gonna say. But all this stuff kind of goes into one. So college is a big avenue with multiple different kind of routes and different things that come into place. And that's what we're here for, to kind of start breaking down some of the barriers and kind of give you a little bit of a game plan to go through and kind of make sure you have a set way. When you think about college, think about the idea of getting from one destination to the next. There's different avenues, different roads you can take, different ways that can connect into it as well. I know for myself, when I heard the word college, I don't know if I had a exact thought or a one word line for it, but I definitely thought it was a scary process because it was very new to me. I was in from a rural area. We had a local community college and that's it, but it was very different to me. Didn't really know what to expect within it, and it did take me some time to get some things figured out and how everything can go about it. Which again, that's what we're here for the next couple of weeks to kind of break down some of the barriers. So my next question for you all is, what careers are you thinking about? And on top of that, what kind of education do you need for them careers? So earlier, my people who said going to vet school, well, let me know what kind of career you want to do as a vet and what kind of education you need. So if you can, let me know within the same chat line. So put like assistant director of admissions, 4-year degree, like put it side by side so I can see what's going on, and let you know. So career, I see neurosurgeon, OBGYN, zoology, biology, surgeon. Someone really wants to go to school for a long time. PR, business consultants, teacher, shout out to you, a pediatrician, civil engineer, aerospace, digital social media, marketing, something. Okay. So I guess y'all are missing the second part of the question though, is what kind of education do you need for them careers? So y'all are telling me y'all's careers. I love to see this, but let me know what kind of education do you need for them careers?
Or what do you think that you need? Because had I been asked this question, maybe like, how long have I been out of college?
A long time.
A long time. Had I been asked this question a couple years ago, my answer would have been like, yo, I have no idea. Because my answer for the first question, maybe like 8 years ago or so, or not the question, the one before that, like, what do you think about when you think about college, would have been like, I don't know what that
I don't know.
is.
I'm
I
like,
don't know what that is. You tell me. So that's
okay.
okay. And we're here to like guide y'all through that process. But we
I
want to know
tell
what you know.
so a lot. Oh, someone here or hit it on the spot. A 4-year degree and a 2-year master's. Shout out to you. A lot of people saying PhD. Okay, so one of y'all said school for a long time. There's a lot of people who wants to get a PhD. Shout out to you all. That's big. Nice. Okay, perfect. So yeah, the reason why we asked this question, Jackie, what's your snap yes for?
See all these like higher level degrees and anything from like y'all, anything that you get, anything that you're able to get, anything that you want, like that is awesome. Shout out to y'all. Y'all already have your big dreams, and I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love the variety in careers too. But the reason we ask this is that when it comes to looking at college and looking at different things, we try to show like it's different parts of college. So you have 4-year degree plans, and you have times where you have to go on just a 4-year bachelor's degree, but you also have 2-year degrees or things routes you can go to more like a trade school or community college. And it's perfectly fine, just depending on which career you want to go to. I saw someone even put, hey, for my career path, I don't need a degree. That's also perfectly fine as long as you have a game plan with it. And that's what we kind of here to go to and what this session is a little bit. We want to start this session off a little bit by is thinking about the different kind of careers in the education path that lines up to it. One of the biggest things that sticks out to me is one time I was at a college fair, this guy came up to me, was talking, chopping it up for a while, and he's like, hey, look, can you help me with what I want to do when I grow up? I said, yeah, what you want to do? He said, I want to cut hair. He said, I cut hair already here in my local community for guys here in my high school. I want to be like a certified barber. And I was like, hey man, that's perfect, but like, you don't need to come to NC State for that. You need to go to barber school for work. And that was something that no one even shared with him before in the high school, no one talked to him about. So he was kind of looking in a 4-year path, thinking that's what he needed to go to become a barber, a certified barber, where his process is a little bit shorter, a little bit different. He's already getting the hands-on experience. Like he knows he's good at what he does. He got that experience already, and his education and kind of what he needed for the career path was a little bit different. And while sometimes I like to ask this question to kind of pick people's brain and say like, some people know from a get-go, other people like myself, I would have no clue, and that's perfectly fine because you won't know unless people start sharing this information with you and start talking to you about it as well. So it's kind of again why a little bit of background why we like to ask this question, just to pick your brain and see if you really know as far as what kind of path you want to take it forward. My last question for you all is, why do you want to go to college? So feel free again to write this down in your red notebook and definitely put it in a chat box. But let us know, why do you want to go to college? And emphasis is on the word you. Don't go because mama and daddy want you to, but why do you? Meet new people to make money. I definitely feel you on that. Make a future, achieve goals, further my education, travel, make money, to be successful. My future, a secure future, to be a vet, meet new people. I love the fact y'all want to go to college, meet new people. That sounds amazing. Study abroad, become a doctor, academic field, something about being successful, more money, being able to help people. That's a big thing. To network, have fun. You can have fun, definitely. Successful career, give back to my family. That's a really big one. Shout out to you, whoever said, I think it's Beverly. I think you said that. Make money and travel, to succeed, to help the environment. Shout out to you. I miss your name, but I love that. Help my community, be first in my family, and graduate. Yo, definitely do that. It's a big accomplishment. You're changing your life path. So definitely do that if you're able to. You get a good career, earn a good education, become a professional. Perfect, perfect. Be able to provide for myself, learn and get a degree, and be self-employed, be successful, give back to my community, achieve my dream. Perfect. All that what you're saying is perfect. And the reason why we like to ask this question is we want this to be part of your motivation and things forward. And so when you think about why you want to go to college, and when things get stressful a little bit of times, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. Like this is a lot going on, a lot of avenues to take, a lot of things to figure out, a lot of decisions to make it all at one time. For someone in high school, use this reason of why you want to go to college as your motivation to get you through any dark any part times it may seem dark, it may seem a little stressful. Use that as your motivation. Even for ourselves on this call, me, Jacqueline, Jackie, and Jocelyn, who and sometimes at work, it gets really stressful for us. We're stressed out. We don't know what to do. We feel overwhelmed. And our motivation is honestly you all. So think about the students we're helping, making an impact on, and students that were kind of in the same shoes as ourselves a couple of years ago. That's our motivation to help us get us through that day. And we use each other as motivation as well within our community and kind of teamwork we built within ourselves. But we use that as our motivation. So use that as the same motivation when thinking about why do you want to go to college, and kind of use that as your kind of drive factor within that as well. So thank you all so much for interacting with the journal questions. We're going to change, switch positions just a little bit now and dive a little bit more into this idea of planning for college.
Okay, sorry. My Zoom is actually freezing right now. So I was trying to unmute and it was giving me a little circle and it was not working. So here we are. I'm going to jump in here and talk a little bit about institution types. So I love what all of you shared about your goals and how you're going to get there. And we are definitely aware that everyone kind of has a different path, and everyone has different goals, and it might require different ways to get there. And so there are a lot of different institution types. And so we kind of want to just talk through that a little bit, so that you're aware what different types are out there, to figure out what is going to be the best path for you. And then we'll talk a little bit more about preparing for college. So if you could go to the next slide, Justin. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is a public four-year university. So public four-year universities are going to be like NC State. If you're in North Carolina, a lot of those UNC schools like UNC Chapel Hill or UNC Wilmington, UNC Charlotte, anything like that, is going to be public four-year university. And you can see some examples at the bottom here. So if you're in North Carolina, you might be a little bit familiar with some of these. But basically, public four-year universities receive funding from the state. So that's kind of how they're able to run their institution, is because they're able to receive funding from the government. And that means that they do have a difference in-state versus out-of-state tuition. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're thinking about going to college out of state, just know that your cost of attendance might be a little bit higher than someone that's in state. And that could be a factor for you to choose to go somewhere in state, because it's going to be a little bit cheaper. In general, I would say cost of tuition is a little bit lower, and that's going to be in comparison to our next type of institution that we're going to talk about on the next slide. But in general, public four-year universities are going to be a little bit lower as far as the cost of tuition. In North Carolina, they're all a part of the UNC system. And so that includes all of the schools below, and all of those UNC schools that I mentioned before. And so because of that, that means that we all have these minimum course requirements that are set by the UNC system. And so they all have the same requirements for their applicants, and that includes a lot of the same graduation requirements that you all have to graduate high school, which is like the 4 math, 4 years of English, 2 foreign language, I forget the other ones, like social studies, science, all of the things, those course requirements that you have to meet in order to graduate. And so that's kind of the general requirements for all of the UNC system schools. They also have like a GPA requirement, and in the past they've had the test score requirements, and of course now they have announced that we're test optional, which we'll talk a little bit more about throughout the rest of this week. But yeah, they kind of they set up those requirements for all of the public universities in North Carolina. So that is something to just keep in mind. It's a good option to consider. But then on to the next slide, we have our next institution type. Justin, there we go. All right, so our private four-year universities. So that is going to be universities like Duke or Wake Forest, Campbell, Elon. You might be familiar with some of these private institutions in North Carolina. And there's also a bunch outside of North Carolina, but these are just some examples within North Carolina. The way that those are funded is by private donors and individuals. So that's kind of how they receive their funding to be able to kind of operate their institution. Their cost of tuition in general can be a little bit more than those of public universities. And they do have the same costs for out-of-state and in-state students. So that's just something to keep in mind. But because they're privately funded, that means that a lot of times they have a lot more opportunities for scholarships and for financial aid. So I wouldn't completely mark out private four-year universities just because they can be a little bit more expensive as far as their cost of tuition, because sometimes they also have like more opportunity for a full ride scholarship or, you know, something like that, or they cover a big chunk of your cost of tuition. So it's definitely a great way to, or a great option to consider as well. But then on to the next slide, Justin. Then we have our community colleges. So this is also a great option. So at a community college, you will earn a 2-year degree. That's the most that you can earn, or the highest that you can earn. So it could be an associate's degree or a technical or trade degree. So maybe if you're interested in something like cosmetology or dental, like hygienist, or welding, mechanical, something like that. A lot of those are only 2-year programs, and sometimes you can make good money in those programs too. So it's definitely a great option to consider. So if that's more of your path, then you can definitely do that. The cost of tuition is going to be much less than 4-year institutions. So both private and public 4-year universities, it's going to be, the cost of tuition is a lot less with those. Some things to consider with community colleges is that their campus life might be a little bit different and a little bit more limited in comparison to a 4-year university. So they might not have as many opportunities for athletics. They probably won't have on-campus housing, and maybe are a little bit more limited with their like student organizations to get involved in too. So it's all about like what experience you want from your college experience. But also I'll mention that transferring is also a great route. So if you want to start at a community college, earn your associate's degree, that 2-year degree, and then transfer to a 4-year university, that's a possibility. And that's a great way to save money too, because like I said, cost of tuition at a community college is a lot cheaper. So if you're saving your money during those first 2 years and then transfer to a 4-year institution, that's always a great pathway as well. And then finally, with community colleges, it's going to be sometimes smaller class sizes than a public or private 4-year institution. And that's because usually community colleges have a lower population of students. So in your classes, you might have like 20 to 30 students in your class. So it might kind of feel a little bit more like your class sizes in high school. Whereas once you go to like a 4-year institution, they usually have more students. It's a higher population of students. So you might have more students in your individual classes, just depending on where you go and how many students attend the institution. But there is a community college in all of the counties in North Carolina. So you probably have one pretty close to you wherever you live. And there's some examples at the bottom here. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about just some other types of institutions to keep in mind. So gender specific institutions, that can be like an all male school or all female school, like Meredith, which is one of the examples at the bottom there. So Meredith is an all female school. And so that could be something that interests you. Sometimes they're private, sometimes they're public institutions. Usually I would say they're generally 4-year institutions. And then we also have minority serving institutions. And so that's kind of like what it sounds, they serve minorities. And because they're minority serving institutions, they do have to have a certain like percentage of their students have to be from that minority they're serving, if that makes sense. So for example, a Hispanic serving institution has to have a certain percentage of Hispanic students that make up their population. And so there's a lot of different ones like Pacific Islander institutions or Native American tribal serving institutions. So there's a lot of different ones. One example is also the historically Black colleges or universities, or HBCUs, which some of you have maybe heard of. And I see somebody saying Aggie Pride. So that's awesome. Yes, we do have a couple HBCUs in North Carolina, including NCA&T. And so they are serving Black students, and they have to meet a certain population, or percentage of their population has to be students that are Black. So that is something to consider if that's, something that you're seeking within your college experience. And then lastly, for-profit versus nonprofit institutions. So that's just something to keep in mind. Some institutions might be for-profit, which means that they are motivated to make profit off of the students that are coming to attend their institution. And then nonprofit is going to be a lot of like the public and private four-year institutions that I've already mentioned. ECPI is an example of a for-profit institution. I feel like normally you just hear about these like on the radio, like in ads and stuff. So that's also something that you can look into. But those are a lot of different institution types, lots of things to consider as far as like what you're going to get out of your experience at the different types of institutions. But now from here, we can talk a little bit about how you can prepare for those different types of institutions.
Awesome. So this is where I come in. Thank y'all for going through that information, because now we're going to talk about how you can prepare for that college experience that you are seeking after you graduate from high school. And you may be thinking, J team, why are we talking about this? Why are we starting from the beginning? But the reason that we are doing this is just so that you all can just know what is out there, so that we can lay the foundation of everything that you can expect and all of the options that you may have, because there are a lot of institutions that you may not even know of that are in North Carolina, in the area, or if you want to go out of state, like that's something that, you know, if it's out there, if it's something that can interest you, that's something that we want you to be aware of, that these things exist. And I know that I keep talking about my own personal experience, but y'all, like when I was in high school, I was really on ground zero. Like I had no idea what was out there. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So in case any of you are feeling that way, or even if you have a lot of knowledge already about the college like process, what may be out there, like we still want you to learn a little bit of information that can help you through these next few years. So yes, and also y'all, as a plug, I do see that there are a couple of questions coming in through the chat, which I love, but if you wouldn't mind rerouting those to the Q&A feature, just so that they can stay in one place. If they're in the chat, they can get lost among all the messages, and we do want to make sure to answer any questions or any doubts that you all may have about the information that we're sharing. I did see some about like NC State's GPA requirements. So like I mentioned, please go ahead and reroute those to the Q&A box so that we can make sure to talk about those at the end of this session. But planning for college, what you can do right now while you're in high school to apply for these opportunities. Justin, if you wouldn't mind sliding to the next slide. Thank you. So just to let you all know that, you know, each college and university that you may apply for that may be on your radar are looking for different things. While we may mention what NC State may look like, we want to keep this on a general basis, just so that you are prepared for any college or university that you are planning on applying for during your senior year. So this is kind of a general idea of what we all kind of have in common, of what kinds of things we're looking for during that review process, and what you all can be doing well and putting on your applications early on. So like Jocelyn mentioned earlier, each college is looking for you to fulfill those general education requirements. If you are in a North Carolina high school, you will graduate with those, so it's not something that you necessarily have to worry about. The one that kind of can trip students up is the 2 consecutive levels of a foreign language. Like that means French 1, French 2, or Spanish 1, Spanish 2, etc. So definitely something to keep in mind, because it is a requirement, at least for public universities. Challenging curriculum. So y'all, I'm gonna be real with you, college classes are hard. Like that transition from high school to college can be a little difficult. And so if you're able to prepare for those and challenge yourselves academically while you are in high school, like that is awesome and can really prepare you for that transition. And what these can look like, they can look like AB classes, AP classes. Why am I not talking well today? AP, IB, dual enrollment or CCP through your local community colleges, honors classes, anything that provides that extra level of rigor. I already see y'all repping your school's curriculum in the chat, okay? I see y'all like keep doing that. Keep challenging yourselves. Keep taking these more difficult courses, early college, middle colleges. All right, CCP, y'all are already there. Look at y'all. I'm so proud of y'all. And if you're still like planning out your curriculum for these next couple of years, like keep these classes in mind, like challenge your take those honors classes or take those IB classes, those dual enrollment, whatever your school may offer to you, because not only will that make your college application more competitive when you are applying to college, but that will help you when it comes time for you to transition to the college or university that you are eventually going to attend. Grade point average, GPA. So I will say that this is in the form of weighted and unweighted on your transcript. weighted just takes that extra level of like the challenging curriculum classes in mind. So like AP or IB can be worth more like weight wise than standard classes. So that's what your weighted GPA will look like. Unweighted literally just takes into account your A's, your B's, your C's, your D's, anything in between that you may have. So this is something that a lot of schools may look at. NC State specifically, we just prefer to see the combination of your grades specifically and the rigor of your classes. So A's and B's with mostly A's is what we're looking for, with some challenging classes. Again, this may look different for different colleges, but overall, y'all, the safest option you can have is just trying really hard, making good grades, taking these challenging courses, because that will make you competitive for the majority of classes, or probably all of the colleges that you are applying for. And so the next thing, oh man, I'm gonna actually, okay, test scores. Sorry, the chat box is covering up the like bottom of the slide. Test scores. I'm gonna talk about this with a grain of salt, because if you are a rising senior, if you're going to be a senior in the next couple of months, and you're planning on applying to a public university in North Carolina, so we are all test optional for this upcoming school year, which means that you can decide whether or not you would like to submit your test scores if you have them to submit. The way that we're going to look at it is that you will not be disadvantaged if you decide not to submit your test scores, but it could help your application. It could make it stronger if you do submit that. If you have scores to submit. That's how NC State will look at it, but different schools could look at it a little bit differently. So just making sure to check in with the colleges that you're applying for, just to see how they will review test scores, if they have some to submit, or if they are, or if they're requiring it, just because for the non-public NC State or NC universities, their requirements could be a little bit different. So word to the wise, check in with the colleges that you're planning on applying for, just to see if they're requiring test scores. Extracurricular activities, y'all, they're going to be looking for this. This just basically means anything that you're doing outside of high school. Go ahead and write it down. Go ahead and involve yourselves, whether it's a job, clubs, volunteering, a sport that you play, a hobby that you pursue outside of high school. Y'all, when I was in high school, my parents didn't let me work. So household responsibilities, like, that counts. Go ahead and put that down, write it down, whatever that may be. It's all very important. For essays, usually college applications have a couple of essays, and this is just so that we can see, you know, who you are and what you're like, what your personality is like, any stories that have happened to you during your high school experience or growing up. We just want to see who you are, because we know that you're more than your grades, you're more than your test scores, you're more than all of that. So go ahead and write down your story. We will have an essay writing workshop later this week, which is something that I'm really excited about. So we'll actually give you those tips and tricks in writing your college essays. And I do see in the chat, to repeat what I said in the previous bullet, your household responsibilities are like that. You're doing stuff, y'all. Like, you're doing something important. You're not just like sitting on the couch or doing anything. Like, those are things that you are responsible for, and that, you know, put that down on your college applications. There's actually a section on like the Common App and the Coalition where you can write those things down. So like, y'all, start to make a little note, like, how many hours a week are you doing chores? How many hours a week are you like outside mowing your lawn, taking care of your siblings, like doing all these things? Just start to keep track of these things, because like, they're all important. So word to the wise. So class rank, this is taken into account if it's provided by your high school, but it's not a make or break factor ever when it comes to an admissions decision. It just kind of lets us know where you are academically when it kind of in relation to your peers. So this is something that will appear on your transcript if your school decides to report it. And a portfolio in an interview, this is not required for a lot of different places. Sometimes the private schools may require like a portfolio or an interview as part of the admissions process. NC State requires this for our studio-based majors if you're interested in going into like architecture, fashion and textile design, etc. So again, check in with the schools that you're planning on applying for. Also, sometimes scholarships require like an interview. So just checking in with that, making sure, bottom line, y'all, just make sure to take a look at the admissions requirements for the specific colleges that you're wanting to apply for.
And real quickly before we go to the next slide, I can't believe I'm saying this, but we can for the time being. Let's put a pause on the chat box just because it's causing us to freeze, it's kicked Jocelyn out already and it's making our stuff not respond. So if you all can, if you don't mind, please do not use the chat box for right now. When we get to the end of the presentation, we will definitely go through and use the chat box again. We get it on, popping, booming, all that all into one. But if you can for right now, don't use the chat box just because I think Zoom is about to break down on us because there's so many chats coming in. Perfectly fine. We love it. I promise we'll use it in just a second. For right now, just use the Q&A box if you have any questions. Again, our stuff is kind of kicking us out real quick. So just please do that. Hang with us. Yeah, it's got, sorry about that.
All right, sorry, my thing had froze. But yeah, y'all, sorry, like we love your conversations. We really do. Like I love to read it, but it's just making our stuff freeze. So if y'all want to come back in at the end, like that is awesome. But we're almost done, I promise. So what should you be doing now to prepare for these different things? So we talked a lot about what colleges we're looking for when it comes to seeing your applications and what kind of things will make your application stronger. So what can you be doing right now to prepare for those things or to add those things to your application? So one, participate in class. And for someone with like social anxiety like me, this can be something pretty difficult, but y'all, this can really get you used to the sort of participation activities that will happen in a college classroom. If the college that you're applying for, the scholarship that you're applying for requires letters of recommendation, like this can be a really good way for your teachers to get to know you and for them to get to write a really strong letter for you that can help you with your college applications. NC State doesn't require them, but some schools do. So participating in class, raising your hand, asking questions, answering questions could be a really good way for your teachers to get to know you and for you to get used to that participation aspect that comes in college classrooms. Doing your homework, this can help you learn the material and boosting your grades. So this is something that, I'm sure all of you already do, but in case that you forget every now and then, please try not to. And so do your homework whenever possible, because this will definitely help you do better in your exams, boost your grades, etc., which will help towards that grade point average and getting that A in the classroom, which will help you with your college applications. Joining clubs or organizations. So all of your schools should offer some sort of extracurricular activities that you are able to get involved with. We know that it's a little bit weird right now, although things are like starting to start up again and open back up. A lot of schools are in person again. So if you're able to do these kinds of opportunities, whether it's a service organization or anything like that, like that could be really cool. And it also allows you to get to learn more things and just open up your experiences a little bit more, because it can help you realize what kinds of things you like and what you don't like. Like when I was in when I was like in my first 2 years of college, I thought I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And I went in with that idea. But then I actually started volunteering at an elementary school, as like a club or an organization. And I realized that I didn't like it at all. So I changed my major right there. And so, joining these kinds of things early on can really help expose you to your interests and what you may not like, because figuring out what you don't like is almost just as important as figuring out what you do like. So yes. And also like clubs and organizations, it doesn't necessarily need to be through your school. It can be through your community. It can be through your church, again, at home, whatever you may do. Basically, like anything outside of the classroom that you're able to do is awesome. Summer enrichment programs such as this one. You're already in a really good place, my friends. Go ahead and put this down on your college application. We hope that you learn a lot. We hope that you enjoy it. But most of all, we hope that you put it down on your college applications, because this sort of thing looks really, really great. And again, you're taking advantage of these opportunities. You're increasing your knowledge and you're increasing like everything, opportunities. So yes, put it down, write it down, make a list. Participate in activities to determine areas of interest. This kind of goes back to my last point in like joining like clubs or doing volunteering or like talking to people. Like sit down with your teachers and talk to them about their career paths. Like that could be an activity that you can actually, that goes to like the next 2 points. I'm just jumping around, y'all. So just finding things that you're able to do that will help you realize what you like or can help solidify your interest, or again, makes you realize that you don't like it at all and you're going to switch your path completely. Doing things like this, like clubs, volunteering, etc., can be a really good way for you to do this. Begin exploring careers, and this can be as easy as like going to Google and typing in different jobs or anything, different majors. Like if you know that you are like a STEM person, go ahead and go to college websites and look up their majors, because a lot of times they have different like career opportunities that they have associated with graduates of that program, and that can really expose you to what's out there, and what is available to you or what can be available to you. Because yeah, growing up, y'all, I really thought there was 3 careers: teacher, lawyer, and doctor. I didn't really think there was much else outside of that. And so if you're able to expose yourself to those kinds of things and what lies outside of those 3 careers, you're already in a better place than I was when you were in high school, or when I was in high school. Talking to adults about what they do and how they got started. Again, this can look like your teachers. If you go to a doctor's appointment, like have a side conversation with them, like, hey, how did you get here? Like, what did you do? What did this look like for you? Or anything like that. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask people, because that can really help you in navigating your own process. And finally, test preparation. This is really going to be emphasized on the next slide. Like, in case test scores are required for when you do apply to college. Justin, if you don't mind going to the next slide, we're just going to transition over there right now. There are a lot of free tools online that you're able to utilize to really get that ACT or that SAT prep. Khan Academy and ACT.org have free tests, like whole tests that you're able to just sit and take as a practice run. Because like if tests are required or standardized exams are required on your college applications, again, please make sure to check with the different colleges that you're applying for. These can be really good tools that you're able to use. But also, like, preparing and finding different colleges that may be out there, like shout out to Big Future, because they are really cool to navigate, and that you just write down like the different location that you perhaps want to go to. Like you could put down your home zip code and be like, give me colleges 50 miles away or like 10,000 miles away. And that way that can like open up different options for you, and you can narrow it down by major, location, by gender, specific institutions, by like the size, if you want a big school or a small school. So you can really toggle with the different tools and filters that they have to really see what's out there, and to look at what their financial aid process is like, what majors they have, what the school looks like. So definitely something that I encourage y'all to look into. And same with College Greenlight. They're also a really cool tool that you're able to use to get that prep.
And then just kind of wrap a lot of information what we provided up, and to kind of get to some of the questions you all may have. If you notice, when it comes to preparing for college and getting yourself up, most people will jump right to the admissions process. Like, what do I need to apply and all of that? But really, we break it down into, in general, 5 big A's: atmosphere, attitude, academics, activities, and then admissions. Atmosphere first is like visit campuses, and like Jackie said, within Big Future, figure out like what kind of schools you want to go for, and kind of what's big to you, what's small to you, what's considered far from home from you, just to kind of narrow the search down in general. I think one time we one time did a little fun activity guessing how many schools there is in the United States. And know for a fact it's like over 10,000. There's a bunch of different schools. So like use this to kind of navigate things you're looking for. And if you're able to visit a campus, do that to see if you like the vibe on there. I know the reason why I decided to choose NC State is because I went to an admitted student event, I set foot on campus, and in my head it just felt like home. So I was like, okay, this is where I want to go to for it. Attitude is start early, don't give up. That goes into that journal question we ask you, why do you want to go to this college? So like think about that and have your attitude forward. Again, there's a lot that happens within your senior year. You get senioritis, like man, this is a lot of stuff. You gotta apply to colleges, do the FAFSA, these scholarships. There's a lot at one time, but start early, prepare yourself for it, have a set game plan, don't give up and keep pushing through. Academics or college fairs. That's why we ask you what kind of careers you're thinking about, and kind of what kind of degree do you need for it. So use that time to start researching some majors, some areas of study, some different career paths you can take. If you want to have a certain career, it's not always just one set major you must do. It's a lot of variety of different majors you can do to get you what you're looking for, and utilize the idea of college fairs. So within your junior and senior year, you're going to get a bunch of different emails at some point saying that different schools are coming to your different colleges are coming to your high school. What is a college fair format, a virtual meeting with someone, or a one-on-one meeting? But use that time to learn more about their school. We doing our job, we're trained to talk to people about our college and the resources we can provide. you can easily go up there and just say, hey, can you tell me about your school, and we'll take care of the rest and talk to you. Or say like, hey, look, I want to major in this. Can you tell me how can you help me with it? Or hey, I want to major in this. I want to do this career path. How can you assist me with the process? And then we'll take care of the rest and let you know all the resources we have available to you. Activities. So look at student organizations. It's things to do definitely that's fun outside the academic realm in college. You're there basically 24/7. So you want to make sure you have ways to have stress reliever and do things you enjoy doing, whether it's sports, playing in the rec center, anything in general. I know we talked about intramural sports earlier. That's personally what I did a whole lot. I really enjoyed it. And I found some student organizations to get involved in. And then lastly, admissions. So think about the admissions requirements and what schools are looking for. And also look at the cost, financial aid or scholarship opportunities. We were laughing earlier that people put debt or people put selling my soul for 40 years or all this crazy stuff. But that's what we're here for. That's what this program is for, to talk to you more about being aware of the cost of going to school and then different financial aid and scholarship opportunities that you can use in order to help with that process and kind of ease some of that barrier forward. I will say for myself, I didn't think I could afford going to college. With the help of my high school counselor, advising counselor in my local high school, he was able to really support me with a lot of different scholarship opportunities. And I was basically to pull in a bunch of different scholarships all together and basically cover most of my time here at NC State. And it's just because I kept applying different scholarships over and over. I did my fast, but just try to take advantage of every opportunity possible. So I kind of keep that in mind with yourself while going through the full process. And I remember it's a lot of things that you prepare, and we're gonna walk you through that guideline as much as we can. At this point in time, hang with us. We stay out some time with you all. We're going to answer to some questions. I'm going to this slide, so don't feel like we're wrapping up. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can in the chat box that you all have went through forward. So really quickly, someone asked, if we want to rewatch these recordings, can we? So we are recording these sessions. We do want to let you know that these sessions will be available to be viewed toward the end of the program. We're going to put it on that YouTube link that you all got when you got your acceptance letter. We did a little welcome video like, hey, this is what to expect. You probably saw my face on there. If you've seen it, the videos will be uploaded right to that, and we will email you the link at the conclusion of the program. So we make sure you have these materials going into your senior year if you need to, and can view it at any point in time. It is a private link also, so only you can view it if you have that link. Jocelyn, pop to you to the next question. Cover some of the information you asked earlier. It was, how can you identify whether a university is a for or nonprofit university?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you might have to do a little bit of investigating. I would say look up, if you're like unsure, definitely look up the institution's website and just kind of get a feel for what information is on their website. And if you're not sure, also Google it. But I would say for the most part, they're going to be nonprofit institutions. There are, less for-profit institutions out there. So just, yeah, I would say Google it if you're not quite sure, and just look up the institution's website. But in general, especially like in North Carolina, a lot of the institutions around here are going to be nonprofit.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then Jackie, I'm gonna pop to you for the next one. I'm kind of combining two questions. So think about COVID and this crazy year we've been in that we're trying to get out of. What about extracurricular activities? A lot of students probably can't do as many extracurricular activities because of COVID. And then going into that to a second part, what is the grades a little bit during during COVID being online and all that form? Can you talk a little bit about how to address that when looking at applications?
Sure thing. So, this is something that we do keep in mind while we do review applications. Like this last year and a half has been yikes. Like it's been rough. And we know that students have experienced it very differently. And this can be like seen through grades or through extracurricular activities. We know that things were shut down for a really long time. So of course we know that your extracurricular activities are not going to look the same as they did maybe 2 years ago. I will say that there is a essay question on the applications that you're able to answer, and just tell us what you've had. If you've had an experience that you feel is important for us to know while we do review your application, like please feel free to be open and honest with us. I promise you that we are the only ones that read through your applications. So it does not leave that room or that like space. And so feel free to let us know anything that you feel is important. And if you have a grade that did slip or you didn't make as well as you wanted to, there's also space on the application where you can just tell us about it. Like tell us what was going on, tell us the context. If whatever you're able to tell us is better than not like acknowledging it at all, if that makes sense. Like if you got that C in math, like just tell us what was going on. We do want to review things within its context, so don't be afraid to like mention it in your application, because it's definitely something that we appreciate. And also, like I mentioned, your extracurriculars don't have to just look like clubs or anything. Like what you do at home is also really important, and you can put that down on your application. So yeah, put down everything that you were doing, because I'm sure that you were up to something, even if it didn't look like clubs or organizations or anything like that. Like put it all down, y'all.
Perfect. I'm gonna knock out a couple quick questions real quick, rapid fire. Letters of recommendation, they're not required for NC State. However, we will still take them, no problem whatsoever. A couple people asked about how many students are in this program right now. I can't give you the exact number, but I'm gonna say it's somewhere close to about 200 students in our program for this upcoming summer. The next question is, how can we list enrichment programs such as this on the application, like on a resume, anything around there? Resume is perfectly fine. That's cool. But really, when they ask you about your extracurricular activities, list it there. It's a week-long activity you did over the summer for college preparation. So definitely list it right there on the top of your list of the pre-college programs. Yes, Jackie.
Just to provide you all with a little bit more information, when you are filling out the Common App or the Coalition, there is a specific section for your activities. So that's where you would put like your clubs, your volunteering, your family responsibilities. That's where you would also put down the this pre-college program. So yeah, like Justin said, put it at the top of the list, and we'll give you some pointers on how you're able to put that down on your application a little bit later in the week. But know that each application has a specific section for your extracurricular activities.
And then Jocelyn, really quick, which is not a quick thing to do. Can you talk a little bit about what we look for in the admissions process here at NC State?
Yeah, of course. So Jackie kind of talked about this, but I can talk more specifically about NC State and what we're looking for in our applicants. And I will say it's very holistic. And so what that means is that we're considering a lot of different factors. It's never going to be like one thing that will make or break your application. Of course, academics always are at the forefront. So we are looking to see that you are making good grades, you're taking those rigorous courses like Jackie kind of talked about. So we want to see that you're challenging yourself and you're really putting forth effort in your academics. But outside of that, we're also going to consider all of those extracurricular activities, anything that you're involved in, your background, where you're coming from. We're really aware that not every school offers the same opportunities to students. And so we do keep that in mind. All of the written portions, so essays and short answer questions, that definitely plays into it because those written pieces really give us a bigger picture of who you are. And so that really tells us more about you. And then I'm trying to remember, am I forgetting anything? I think that's everything. So, I mean, lots of different things we're considering. And so there's never just like one thing, unfortunately. And sorry, that's a really long answer. I'm sure you're looking for something that was like super brief and like, this is what we're looking for, but there's a lot of different things. And hopefully that covers it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we're going to do two more quick questions real quick before we move on to the next part and be mindful of everyone's time. So definitely hang in there with me. Remember, we got a full 2 weeks to answer any of the questions you all may have. So one of the questions we received is, as we go through reviewing applications, the big elephant in the room, we do review student applications. We read them ourselves through the process. What are some things in a student's application that's unique or remarkable? Honestly, it's really just more learning about their story. So part of the application is learning who they are as far as inside, but also outside the classroom. So your transcript shows your academic achievement and all of that. But as far as extracurricular activities, your program choice, and your story, that's more of information the students providing to us. So we get to learn all of their obstacles they've overcome and accomplishments they had along the way and kind of who they are and what makes them unique. And that's really, I think, the important part of the student stories. And what stands out is like we really feel like in that little period of that time, we're reviewing applications. And you think about it, like small amount of time, a small little window, we're learning to say, okay, like I really feel like I know who Jocelyn is. Like she's a student who's done this, but also passionate about this. And this is her background. That's kind of the fun part that really sticks out to us and things we really enjoy on the looking at the application and all of that. The last question I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pop to Jackie and Jocelyn for both of y'all to answer this since y'all are coming from two different schools. And it was sent anonymously, so I don't know who it is, but shout out to you for asking this question. And it was, how comfortable did you all feel when you attended college at a PWI as a minority? And so for anyone who's wondering, PWI is a predominantly white serving institution, predominantly white institution, something like that. But schools like NC State, we are PWI. For me, myself, Jackie, and Jocelyn, we are people of color in some shape or form. So we are considered a minority going to a PWI. So if y'all can talk a little bit about that experience, it'll be perfect.
I can start off. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the last session, I actually did not attend NC State. I attended UNC Chapel Hill. So that experience, like, I mean, growing up, I remember specifically in high school, like it started with those feelings of like, oh man, I'm the only person of that is like Latinx in my AP classes. And like, this, I almost felt like I was already at a predominantly white, I mean, I was at a predominantly white school, like even in high school. So my transition to like UNC Chapel Hill wasn't extremely different, but it was just kind of like, oh man, this experience again. But being in college really allowed me to find community of people who looked like me, who were in the classes that I was taking and whatnot, which is something that I didn't really get in high school. I also like moved across the country during my junior year, so it was a little rough, like around the edges, but I also had very similar experience with high schools that I attended. So being in college really allowed me to find my community in like Latinx organizations and clubs, and the job that I got at the Carolina Latinx Collaborative. That helped me find my community outside of the classroom. Inside of the classroom, it was so a little rough because of like that experience of like, and like being more aware, like as I was joining these organizations, I was learning more like about myself and my identity, because also like learning about my identity and like who, like what kinds of things I like, and like looking at myself and my story within this cultural lens, like wasn't something that I actually did until college. So kind of going through and navigating that process, it was just a whole like shift. It was rough. It was like learning about myself, and like being in this environment like was kind of a clash. Like it was weird. It was a little uncomfortable like navigating, and it got a little bit easier because the first few years were weird to navigate. So I know that I talk in circles. I tend to do that. So just keep that in mind for the next 2 weeks. Um, but yeah, it was kind of a weird and uncomfortable process, but it was also a learning process, because being in college allowed me to just find people who looked like me, who had the same interests as me, that I wasn't able to do in high school. So it was like a weird change, kind of an uncomfortable one, but it was a refreshing one overall.
Yeah, and I would say for me, I guess it was a similar experience to Jackie in the sense that I was like kind of used to being in a PWI. And so I kind of didn't really recognize that there could be something different. So when I like came from high school into NC State, I was just used to being surrounded by white people. And that's just like, I didn't think anything different of it. So it didn't take like, it took kind of a while for me to come to a place where I was like, oh, like this is a thing, like this is a PWI. I had no idea what a PWI was. And it took like a couple of years into college for me to like kind of realize these things. And I definitely would say that I did not take advantage of the opportunities during my undergraduate years at NC State, as far as like things that I could have gotten involved in, where there were people that looked like me and talked like me and like had similar backgrounds as me. I did not like realize that there were so many options for that at NC State, because I didn't know that that was a thing going into like college, and I didn't know that was a thing like while I was in high school. And so I did not take advantage of the opportunities that I wish that I would have. Like I wish I would have known what I know now when I was in college. And so that's kind of why we're here. Like we want to know, like we want to tell you what is out there so that you can take advantage of it before, like earlier than we were able to. Because there really are a lot of like those campus community centers, and we're going to talk about this throughout the rest of this week too, like places where you can find people like you that have similar backgrounds. And like it's awesome that there are spaces like that in college that I like just unfortunately didn't take advantage of myself while I was in undergrad. But now that I know, and I have a brother that's about to come to NC State, and I'm like about to tell him about all of the options. I'm like, you have to do this and this and this. So like, you know, you live and you learn, and you can like learn to like then tell the people that are coming behind you. So
And then I just want to pop in for the last 4 minutes, everyone, please hang with me real quick and say, first and foremost, thank you all for spending some time with us through the first part. I think for ourselves, the first day is always the most nervous feeling because you just don't know what to expect with students joining in. I think we hit a certain milestone. We can say you all was the first group of students we've interacted with that kind of broke Zoom, making it go super slow. And we had to say, actually, like, stop talking in the chat box because it's freezing our Zoom so much. So you all have wrote a new milestone and a big accomplishment, I guess you could say, within that. Within the chat box too, I can see you all interacting with each other, giving each other feedback, talking with each other, and engaging with it. And that's something that we really love to see and we're super proud about. So shout out to you all for that, kind of interacting with each other. When you think about it, we just recently found out who we are. A lot of you all by name only about 2 hours ago, if that, and is already trying to build that community aspect and work together. And that's what we really love to see within it. So big shout out to you for that. Remember, for the rest of our sessions for this week, they're going to be start at 1 o'clock each day. The Zoom link will be emailed out to you at 11 o'clock. If you haven't received that email by like 12:30, please email us then so we can make sure you're good to go. Tell your friend and tell a friend to it as well. We can make sure you're good to go for it. The last thing, which we cover a little bit in the welcome session, that we do want to highlight. If you look in the chat box, you're going to see a eval link come out really quickly from Jocelyn. If you can, just please try to fill out that information just to see some information we covered you for today and let you reflect on it as well. And Emily, you just put the hashtag JTeam, and I want to say I died laughing earlier when Jackie mentioned that in her presentation. Like, she said JTeam, and I literally died laughing. Like, no, you didn't say JTeam again. So I love to see it. I love it so much. Shout out, yeah, we're the JTeam now if you can get it. But yeah, you can see Jocelyn put, it says docs Google. I think I dropped a lot of Google Docs link, but use that really quickly. It's a small eval thing to fill out. I promise you, it won't take you about 5 minutes. Remind you of Team Rocket. Who's Meow? That's my question. Like, who's Meow? Because I'm just curious if we remind you of Team Rocket. But if you can, please follow that eval, give some good feedback for us to make sure we're good to go. Jeffrey, you can be part of the J game at the end of the program, man. Once you finish in the program, you got to pass everything. You can be part of the J team. We can put you in for it. Jocelyn, can you put that link down one more time for it? So she put the link one more time. Look for her name, Jocelyn Barrientos. I know there's a lot of people's names in there, but look for her right there. You can do it. Someone said you're a fan of me. Hey, I appreciate you, big dog. We do what we can in general. But if you all have that link pulled up and you clicked on it for you all are free to go for today with about 1 minute to spare. We're gonna stay on here for one. Someone said one of my tats. Ron, I'll show my tattoos a little bit later. We all actually have a tattoo in the same spot, which is crazy and was unplanned. So at the end of the program, in the closing session, we will show that information with everyone. But you all are free to go. We'll see you once again at 1 o'clock. We're gonna hang on this session just a little bit longer to make sure everything is good. Y'all are good to go. See you so much. Y'all have a good one.